Making it in the entertainment industry isn't easy and requires no shortage of talent, charisma, and a little bit of luck. So you might be surprised to learn how many big-time celebs got started on the road to stardom for unusual reasons. Landing a big role isn't always the end of the story. We'll also talk about some actors who hate the roles that made them famous. From their most controversial roles to their most unlikely origin stories, we'll talk about some of your favorite Hollywood stars. Being an actor means being skilled in the art of speech, but for some people, this can be quite a struggle. You might be surprised to learn that some talented and well-spoken celebrities were once burdened by stutters. Emily Blunt not only struggled to express herself when she was younger, but she was barely capable of holding a conversation. She suffered from a debilitating stutter which prevented her from communicating with people around her. According to Emily, she was an intelligent person with a lot to say, but was unable to get the words to come out. Far from dreaming of the spotlight, Emily simply wanted to be able to have a conversation with someone. This led to her feeling isolated, and she desperately searched for a way to work around her speech impediment. Speech coaches and relaxation experts tried their best to teach Emily how to speak, but they were at a loss. Her parents felt as though they were running out of options when they got some help from a surprising source. When Emily was 12 years old, one of her teachers recommended she try out for a play. It seemed impossible that a girl who couldn't have a conversation with a single person could wow an audience on stage. But it turns out this idea was just crazy enough to work. Emily threw herself into her character with such tenacity that she felt a distance develop between herself and her part in the play. The experience was so freeing, she was able to get through the play without a single stutter. She stuck to the spotlight and eventually was able to overcome her stutter. Emily Blunt isn't the only celebrity who found an acting career help them overcome their speech impediment. Stars like Bruce Willis and Samuel L. Jackson also credit acting with helping them learn to work past their stuttering. Not only is Will Smith a famous actor, but he has a whole famous family at this point. It seems like being a performer is in his DNA, but his Hollywood career got off to a surprising start as a result of a heartbreak. Although he's now happily married to his wife, Jada Pinkett Smith, there was a time when he was 15 and in a relationship with another teenager. However, this teenage dream turned into a nightmare when Will discovered he'd been cheated on. The actor was left devastated, but concocted a way to get back at his ex. They say that a life lived well is the best revenge, and Will Smith took this to heart. He decided to show her what she was missing out on by becoming the most famous entertainer on Earth. Although everyone has their own opinion about the Fresh Prince, Newsweek once called him the most powerful actor in Hollywood, and many of us second that motion. He's had way more hits than misses in his career and has been nominated for numerous Academy Awards. While Will Smith may be an incredibly wealthy celebrity today, many actors struggle to make ends meet while getting started in their career. It's not unusual for them to take menial jobs until their careers take off. Christian Bale did things a little bit differently. He started working when he was 11 years old because his family was desperate for money. They were just trying to get by, and Christian was willing to do whatever he could to help out. He was only 11 years old when he got into acting and was proud to be able to help support his family. But despite being a critically acclaimed actor now, he admits to having a love-hate relationship with his career. At times, Christian admits to feeling obligated to take on roles which robs him of finding joy in his work. But when he is able to act in films he's passionate about, Christian loves being in front of the camera. Christian Bale started out acting out of necessity, but Emma Stone began out of sheer desperation. While she may look confident strolling down the red carpet, there was a time in her life when she was positively overcome with negative emotions. She admitted to suffering from nearly constant anxiety and panic attacks when she was younger, and claims they grew to be debilitating. Not a moment went by when she wasn't overcome with anxiety and struggled to control every aspect of her life. According to Emma, she would constantly question her mother, eager to plan every moment of her day to try to minimize her anxiety. It got so bad she was kept in a constant state of nausea and couldn't even handle going to visit her friends. Even getting out the door for school in the morning seemed like an insurmountable challenge, and Emma knew something had to change. She spent hours in therapy and turned to writing in her search for relief. But interestingly enough, Emma discovered that acting was the most effective cure for the issues she was dealing with. She threw herself into improv and sketch comedy at a local youth theater and realized her new hobby required a huge amount of concentration. Being forced to focus so acutely on her performance made it difficult for her mind to wander and become overwhelmed with anxiety. Eventually, Emma found her negative feelings were kept at bay, even when she was in the middle of a performance. She improved so much she was able to look toward the future and launch her Hollywood career. Many actors have been known to go above and beyond when it comes to researching their roles. It helps them get into the correct mindset for their performances and gives insight into the characters they're portraying. When it comes to this method, Chadwick Boseman ended up going way too far. Although he's now best known for starring in the huge blockbuster movie Black Panther, Chadwick didn't consider himself to be an actor for most of his career. He started out writing and directing, which meant working with actors in order to get his work done. However, Chadwick often struggled to relate to the challenges actors go through and understand their outlooks. He decided that if he gave acting a try, he might be able to better relate with the actors he had to work with and improve his directorial abilities. Despite his reluctance to perform in front of a camera, Chadwick decided to give it a try and found out he's pretty good at it. But still, he doesn't think of himself as an actor, but as an artist, first and foremost. There are many actors who started their careers for unusual reasons, but there are some who actually resent what made them so famous. Penn Badgley was shot to stardom after appearing in Gossip Girl, where he played the role of Dan Humphrey. If you haven't seen the show, don't worry, we won't spoil the ending. But suffice to say, it was pretty controversial. Many fans felt the ending, which heavily involved Penn's character, was completely bogus. A lot of the criticism ended up coming down on David, who also couldn't stand the way the show ended. Not only did he have nothing positive to say about the ending, it turns out he wasn't a huge fan of the show as a whole. He also mocked the show's portrayal of white privilege and seemed dismissive of its impact on pop culture. Luckily for Penn, he's been able to find projects which better match his talent and sensibilities. Now he tries to concentrate on projects he can feel proud of, instead of those he constantly feels the need to apologize for. Still, many Gossip Girl fans are not happy to hear Penn being so negative about the series, which made him a star. And it turns out Penn isn't the only ex-Gossip Girl cast member with something negative to say. Blake Lively has been trying to distance herself from Gossip Girl since the show wrapped up, despite it making her famous. According to Blake, her appearance on the show made audiences feel as though they knew her personally, and their impression couldn't be more wrong. She was quick to question the integrity of the show and claims she prefers less scandalous and more creative projects. While Blake appreciates the people who love Gossip Girl, she admits she felt as though she was compromising her values by being part of the cast. Not only did she struggle with the morality of the show, but there was no shortage of drama behind the scenes. She used to date fellow Gossip Girl actor Penn Badgley and admits the lines between her career and personal life often became blurred. There was a lot of romance going on behind the scenes, which just made filming the already controversial show all the more scandalous. It seems like Mark Wahlberg has been in Hollywood for ages, and while his career has been successful, it hasn't been free of challenges. Many people have had regrettable moments in their youth, but Mark's have unceasingly haunted him over the course of his career. First, there's his musical career, which, little known fact, started out with the boy band New Kids on the Block. However, that didn't last long. He quit after just a few months and became the Marky Mark in Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch. Back when he felt as though he was on top of the world. Mark now regrets these career moves and admits looking back on his previous actions makes him cringe. But there are some parts of his past he regrets far more than an ill-advised modeling job. When Mark Wahlberg was only 15 years old, he and 3 friends embarked on a campaign of harassment, which ended up with Mark in court. On at least 2 separate occasions, they chased people, hurling rocks at them and screaming racial slurs. Civil action was taken against Mark for these incidents, but ended up being settled outside of court. In 2014, Mark Wahlberg sought to express his regret for his past actions. He requested a full pardon for all the charges against him, but the backlash he faced was fierce and immediate. People who had forgotten or had never known about the actor's past actions were horrified with what they discovered. While many are able to look past these aspects of Mark's past, others feel he doesn't deserve his subsequent fame and success. Shailene Woodley has had a long career in acting, but at one point realized she was having to seriously compromise her values to get work. She became well known for her work on The Secret Life of the American Teenager, where she starred as a pregnant high schooler named Amy Juergens. Shailene claims working on the show was a great experience overall, but she had some serious issues with the content she was promoting. She had serious moral objections to the content being shown on the show, and it began to affect more than just her performance. Each morning, she would struggle to get out of bed, knowing what she was going to have to film. The responsibility of showcasing certain morals, or lack thereof, was weighing on her, and all she could think about were all of her impressionable fans. Things got so bad, Shailene was tempted to quit The Secret Life of the American Teenager entirely. But things weren't quite that simple. She had entered into a strict contract, and simply not showing up anymore wasn't an option. Despite her own personal objections, she was forced to continue the show. Starring in High School Musical opened up no shortage of doors for actor Zac Efron, but in many ways, it also held him back considerably. He claims to greatly appreciate all of his fans who enjoyed his performance as Troy Bolton, but he also wonders if the show ultimately did more harm than good. He's grown up a lot since then, and now struggles to be taken seriously as an actor. Zac claims that no matter what he does, and no matter how many roles he takes on, he's still known as the guy from High School Musical. He finds the role to be embarrassing and is doing whatever he can to distance himself from it, even if it means taking on some even more controversial roles in the future. While High School Musical was a hit with people of a certain age, Titanic is considered one of the greatest movies ever to be released. It has a place on the National Film Registry, grossed over $2 billion, and won tons of Academy Awards. So you might be surprised to know one of the stars of the movie can't stand the sight of it. Kate Winslet admits the movie was a masterpiece, but has a serious issue with her own performance. The movie was treated to a 3D re-release, and Kate was confronted with a performance given by her younger self. After not seeing the film for years, Kate was shocked by her performance and hated the way her American accent sounded. Along with admitting she doesn't enjoy watching her own performance in general, Kate also confessed her role in Titanic is her least favorite. Not only does Kate absolutely abhor hearing her own voice in Titanic, but there's also another classic aspect of the movie she can't stand. The Celine Dion song My Heart Will Go On made the soundtrack a best-selling album, but Kate isn't a fan. She claims she can't stand the song, and every time she hears it, she can't help but roll her eyes. Given the choice to go back in time, Kate claims she would take a pass on the role of Rose. Earlier, we talked about how Christian Bale started acting as a way to pay the bills more than any sort of appreciation of the art. However, that doesn't mean he doesn't take pride in his work, for the most part. But there's one classic movie he was in which he deeply regrets to this day. Christian learned a serious lesson about not agreeing to appear in a movie without finding out all of the details. He signed on to play a part in the 1992 movie Newsies, but at the time didn't realize it was a musical. Christian was pushed way outside his comfort zone when it came to singing and dancing, but for him, it wasn't a good thing. He was uncomfortable with his performance, and filming was awkward, to say the least. Although the film would be a success, Christian vowed never to do anything like it ever again. Not only was working on the film uncomfortable, but it was detrimental to his self-esteem. At 17 years old, he was trying everything possible to be taken seriously in Hollywood and felt like Newsies was a huge step back. Although he deeply regrets his involvement, he wishes the cast of the Broadway version the best of luck. Megan Fox had earned a bit of a reputation for being in less than stellar movies when she got a huge opportunity. She was cast in the first Transformers movie back in 2007, but right from the get-go, things went horribly wrong. According to Megan, working with director Michael Bay was nothing short of a nightmare. Returning for the sequel, Transformers: Revenge of the Fallen, wasn't any better of an experience for Megan. This time, she didn't hold back when it came to discussing how she felt about Michael Bay, and she was far less than complimentary. She compared the successful director to a dictator on set and wasn't much nicer about his non-work personality. Megan described him as hopelessly awkward and said he has no social skills at all. He's vulnerable and fragile in real life, and then on set, he's a tyrant. And it turns out Michael Bay wasn't exactly a fan of hers either. She was supposed to appear in the third Transformers movie, Dark of the Moon, but following her inflammatory comment, she was dropped from the project. Megan insisted it had been her choice not to return, but Michael told a different story. He claimed Megan was a nightmare to work with and spent all of her time on set with her nose in her phone, if she bothered to show up. But unlike many Hollywood feuds, this one at least has a happy ending. Megan eventually reached out and apologized, claiming she was wrong to speak so disrespectfully of Michael. She added that she was young and was still learning how to conduct herself properly, and the two were able to make peace. They even worked together again on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Out of the Shadows. One star who has had a much more difficult time reconciling with her past career is Miley Cyrus. She appeared as the eponymous character on the hit show Hannah Montana. It seemed like you couldn't look anywhere without seeing the show or at least a piece of Hannah Montana merchandise. But playing the perky blonde pop star started to have a negative effect on Miley's real life. She had always wanted to pursue a career in music, and at age 11, it seemed like her dream had come true. But all of the trappings of fame were more than she could deal with, and she found herself desperately trying to fit into the Disney mold. She was told she had to have blonde hair and wear tight-fitting, glittery costumes while pretending to be a teenager. Miley has compared it to an episode of Toddlers and Tiaras. She says she was told that this is what it meant to be a girl and a pop star. Each day she was forced to undergo hair, makeup, and wardrobe, and each day she felt it wearing her down. She began to develop a serious case of body dysmorphia and stopped recognizing herself when she looked into the mirror. Although the show did help kick off her musical career, she was forced to tour both as herself and Hannah Montana. Maintaining one personality is difficult enough, and Miley found two to be impossible to cope with. She admits Hannah Montana had an adverse effect on her psyche, and these issues followed her into adulthood. Everyone thought Miley was losing her mind when she cut her hair short and began wearing provocative clothing, but she was just trying to find herself. Miley admits she was desperate to reclaim her body and her career, which had been controlled by others for so long. In her quest to find herself, she cut things off with her partner, Liam Hemsworth, although the two ultimately reconciled. To outsiders, it seemed like Miley had everything, but in reality, she was suffering under the weight of her stardom. The Twilight Saga was a massive success in both its book and movie formats, but it proved difficult to move past for one actor. Robert Pattinson played the role of Edward Cullen, which earned him no shortage of devoted fans. However, not only is he not a fan of the movies, he doesn't think they should have ever been made. He claimed to have read the original books written by author Stephenie Meyer and said he's shocked they were ever published. According to Robert, Stephenie Meyer clearly imagines herself as the protagonist Bella and calls her mad. Not only did Robert have a huge issue with the source material, but he has stated the pay wasn't nearly enough for what was required. Still, he made every effort to put forth his best performance, though this ended up getting him in trouble. He confessed he was once fired from the film because he brought far too much intensity onto the set. Robert pictured Edward as an intensely brooding character, but the cast and crew found it too upsetting. They grew uncomfortable with his lack of smiling and having fun, and the producers had to have a serious talk with Robert about his performance. To try to improve his performance, he was given another copy of the book, but this one had been highlighted to show how often Edward smiles. While many actors have personal feelings about the projects they've been in, others have been the victim of serious public backlash. Brie Larson was apprehensive of taking on the mainstream role of superhero Captain Marvel. However, she ultimately looked at it as a way to inspire young women and show them they too can be heroic and brave. So you may have been surprised to see headlines accusing Brie of sexism, along with a quote in which she claimed to not care what white men think of her movie. It seemed like that was all anyone could talk about, and even fellow actor James Woods called for a boycott of Captain Marvel. However, while the public outcry was immediate, it completely missed the context of Brie's quote. She wasn't even talking about Captain Marvel, but rather she was speaking about a serious and rarely mentioned issue in the film industry. The vast majority of film reviewers are white men, far more than reflect the actual US population. Brie has been vocal about calling for greater representation and has challenged film festivals to commit to featuring more diversity among reviewers. But sadly, it seems like many people are determined to focus on one poorly phrased sentence instead of what Brie was actually talking about. With this in mind, it's hardly surprising that this Academy Award-winning actress has been criticized for portraying Captain Marvel from the get-go. Before the movie was even released, people were accusing her of not smiling enough in the trailers. Some fans pointed out how absurd and sexist this complaint is by showing images of male Marvel heroes sporting huge grins. Rotten Tomatoes even had to change their review policy after they were flooded with negative reviews of Captain Marvel before it hit theaters. Thankfully, it seems as though our hero has triumphed over those who were trying to hold her back. Captain Marvel enjoyed a worldwide opening of $456.7 million, making it the sixth biggest of all time. Another heavily criticized movie was Aloha, and much of the disdain fell on the shoulders of actress Emma Stone. She was cast as the character Allison Ng, who is of one-quarter Chinese and one-quarter Hawaiian descent. Fans accused director Cameron Crowe of whitewashing the movie and expressed their disappointment with Emma's casting. Cameron responded to the criticism with a heartfelt apology, but still defended his choice to cast Emma as Allison. He claimed the character of Allison was supposed to be frustrated because her appearance wasn't representative of her diverse heritage. According to Cameron, the character was based on a real person who indeed looks similar to Emma. For a period of time, Emma herself maintained silence on the subject before finally speaking up. She eventually repeated what Cameron had said about Allison appearing white and not resembling her background, but she also claimed to have become increasingly aware of the issue of whitewashing in Hollywood. Zac Efron has stated he wants to distance himself from his role in High School Musical, but some fans feel he's gone too far to shed his image. He starred in Extremely Wicked, Shockingly Evil, and Vile. The movie has drawn criticism for supposedly glorifying some nightmarish crimes, and Zac's portrayal has been deemed too charming. Many people have accused Zac of trying to cash in on a tragic event and portraying this man in a dangerous way. However, there is someone who strongly disagrees with this statement, and she happens to be a real-life victim of the man Zac Efron portrays. Kathy Kleiner-Rubin was only 20 years old when she and her roommate were attacked. Surprisingly, Kathy has no issue with the movie. While critics claim Zac is guilty of playing up some of the man's notorious charm and good looks, Kathy believes his portrayal is accurate. According to Kathy, part of what made this man such a successful villain was his magnetism and charisma. They were big factors to his crimes, and playing them down would be disingenuous. Kathy states that as long as viewers realize that Bundy is not an average person, she has no issue with Zac playing the role. Penn Badgley came under similar criticism for his portrayal of a fictional criminal, Joe Goldberg, on the hit show You. The show tells the story of Joe as he relentlessly stalks a woman named Beck, often resorting to violence to get what he wants. Despite Joe being a dangerous man, many fans couldn't help but be taken in with Penn's charming and handsome portrayal of the character. Some have even taken to criticizing Penn for presenting such a destructive character in an appealing way. But according to Penn Badgley, that's just part of his job. He believes Joe was meant to, quote, garner a conflicted reaction. Instead of seeing Joe as an actual person, he sees Joe as the personification of someone's worst traits. He believes Joe's victim blaming, privilege, and blindness to his own faults are things most of us struggle with in real life. Penn believes many of us can relate to Joe in some small way, which is why it's possible to feel a connection to his character. The real danger, he believes, isn't in venerating Joe, but rather an aspect of our real lives that most of us overlook each and every day. In You, Joe utilizes technology and the internet in order to stalk Beck without getting caught. Penn points out that Joe is not at all portrayed as a dangerous mastermind and in fact makes frequent and careless mistakes. But despite these setbacks, he's able to track Beck easily using little more than a cell phone. According to Penn, this should inspire people to think about what they're putting out there on social media and how easily it can turn dangerous. While the character Joe believes himself to be a hopeless romantic, technology makes it possible for him to indulge in his obsessive compulsions. Actor Jared Leto also knows what it's like to get backlash for a role. In the movie Dallas Buyers Club, he plays the role of a transgender woman. Many people had an issue with a cis man playing the role of a transgender woman and accused Jared of trans misogyny. At a Q&A event, he was even booed and heckled by unhappy audience members. When faced with criticism, Jared claimed that saying he couldn't play a trans woman was like saying gay actors can't play straight parts. However, many claim the issue here has to do with trans visibility. Many transgender people are invisible in pop culture and struggle to land roles in contemporary media. Tons of trans actors struggle to find work, while the role of trans women are usually cast by men. When it came to casting the movie, director Jean-Marc Vallée confessed he had never even considered casting a trans person in the role. He went on to question whether there are even any transgender actors in Hollywood. It's not as though Jared Leto beat out other trans actors by being more qualified. None of them were even considered. Regardless of the controversy surrounding Dallas Buyers Club, Jared won an Oscar for Best Supporting Actor for his role. Many feel the casting of a cis man as a trans woman was a transparent bid for an Oscar. But it doesn't always work. Eddie Redmayne was cast as a trans woman in the movie The Danish Girl, and he also received his share of criticism. Director Tom Hooper claimed there was a serious shortage of trans actors, but claims Eddie was chosen because of his gender fluidity. But not only do trans actors exist, some of them were cast in minor roles in the movie. Rebecca Root and Jake Graff were both in The Danish Girl, so clearly Tom Hooper was aware trans actors existed. Overall, the film received a poor reception with the trans community. Many critics claimed it relied heavily on cis stereotypes about trans people and was woefully out of touch. It was accused of promoting cliché and potentially harmful stereotypes about what is expected of trans women. Many have compared the casting of cis men as trans women to casting white people as people of color. The producers of The Lone Ranger tried to avoid controversy in their film by hiring an advisor from the Comanche Nation. They claimed to want to portray a positive and accurate representation of the Comanche and decided to cast Johnny Depp as Tonto. For his part, Johnny Depp claims he believes he may have some Native American ancestry via his great-grandmother. Johnny Depp hoped his version of Tonto could serve as a good portrayal of Native American culture, which is sorely lacking in pop culture. He even learned some of the Comanche language, which only has between 25 and 30 native speakers. However, many people were offended by this casting choice and Johnny Depp's portrayal. But the true issue seemed to not be with Johnny Depp, but with the character. Tonto came across as less of an individual character and more of a representation of an entire race of people. The character was problematic from the get-go, and although people working on the movie may have had good intentions, the movie was still controversial. Sadly, whitewashing accusations in Hollywood are nothing new, and they don't seem to be going anywhere anytime soon. When Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time was released, Jake Gyllenhaal was cast as the lead role. The role of Princess Tamina was played by English actress Gemma Arterton. Many critics of the film were upset that white actors were cast in parts which should have gone to people of Persian or Middle Eastern descent. Some claimed that not only was the movie insulting to people of color, but it was also insulting to white people. They believe the casting of Jake Gyllenhaal was because of the belief white audiences can't enjoy a movie with a non-white lead. Even modern-day, big-budget movies aren't immune from these types of criticism. Doctor Strange is one of the many incredibly successful entries into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but it rubbed a lot of comic book fans the wrong way. The character of the Ancient One is an Asian man in the comics, yet actress TILDA Swinton was chosen for the movie role. Making an Asian character a white woman upset many fans, and Doctor Strange director Scott Derrickson couldn't help the issue. While trying to defend his controversial casting decision, he claimed he was trying to avoid making the Ancient One an Asian stereotype. He decided to make the character a woman and couldn't get the idea of an Asian dragon lady out of his head. So, in an effort to avoid offending people, because he couldn't create an authentic Asian character, he simply made her white. Scott Derrickson said he felt what he did was the lesser of two evils, and he didn't want to contribute to negative stereotypes. However, the only other major Asian character in the movie stepped in to defend the casting of Tilda Swinton. Benedict Wong plays the character named Wong, who received a major upgrade from his subservient comic book counterpart. Benedict claimed his casting was a step in the right direction, and he hopes to open more doors for Asian actors. According to Benedict, there's a wealth of East Asian talent around, and that needs to be tapped into. For a long time, gay characters have been taboo in mainstream films, especially with the family-friendly Disney Corporation. When Disney even hinted at a gay character in Beauty and the Beast, it caused an eruption of controversy. Director Bill Condon said there was a single, quote, gay moment in the film, which occurs when LeFou briefly dances with another man. It was a small moment in the movie, which many praised for its diversity, but others condemned. In Russia, the culture minister called for the film to be banned, but ended up compromising by giving it a 16+ rating. Malaysia wanted to cut out the scene entirely, but when Disney refused, the movie was nearly banned outright. Instead, they released it with a PG-13 rating. The movie did end up getting banned from Kuwait, and certain theaters in the United States refused to screen it because of that one scene. What are your thoughts about these career controversies? Do you think they're even worth talking about, or are they just part of the job? Share your thoughts with us in the comment section, and then click on the subscribe button for more videos from us here at The Taco. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again next time.